at the public meeting. When we introduced the budget, the purpose of the meeting was to answer questions and have a discussion with the residents of Dumont, where we are, where we're going, and what we're looking at going forward here. So just to highlight the process, at the beginning of this year, Mr. Perkins had asked the department heads to prepare and submit a budget request for 2010. They decided to use 2009 appropriations as a point of reference in formulating the 2010 budget. The reason why we did this is because we had a surplus coming out of 2009 to 2010. We reviewed each department's request and evaluated each line item. At the end of this portion of our task, we were at a 2.4% increase over the 2009 appropriations. Fixed cost increase, health insurance, pension contributions, liability insurance, all these increases went into double digits. On March 18th, we learned that state aid would be cut by 20.4%, which brings us to this point. The budget as it stands now for 2010 is $15,776,011, which is $1,309,205 increase from 2009. 2009 budget was $14,466,806. This equates to $237 increase on assessed value of a $382,000 home. Process from introduction to adoption. The committee will meet with department heads and contracted employee representatives. We will lay out where we are and where we will be headed at the end of this process. We're looking to be at or below the cap levy. What does this mean? The committee will be going back to the department heads, and we're looking for cuts between 5 and 10% over what we've already established. We'll ask each department head to evaluate what they do and how they do it. We will be asking the Shared Services Committee to contact neighboring boroughs and explore areas in common. Going forward, it seems that the governor intends to continue to cut state aid going forward, so we are looking at the possibility going from 2010 to 2011 with salary freezes, furlough days, and layoffs. We as a community need to ask ourselves, well, can we live without? We are planning to go to the community. We will be holding a number of town hall meetings for residents to participate. Thank you for coming, since you're the only one. We've held one with the seniors where we had 30 residents turn out for that, and that was a good Q&A session at that meeting. These are the pieces of the process that we need to resolve, in Trenton in coming months prior to the mayor and council adopting this budget. There'll probably be changes to how we go about meeting our goal to bringing in at or below the tax levy. Now, 28 days must pass between the introduction and the public hearing. The introduction was April 6th. 28 days puts us at May 4th. The public hearing will be held on May 18th at 7 p.m. Any questions?
This is for the public. Okay. Can I sit or?
Say your time. Again? 18.
I'm aware that from the progress that's reported in the past year, and also from Mr. Perkins' reports, that we're sharing a DPW truck here, and we're sharing a court administrator there with some other neighboring municipalities. Besides that, are we doing all we can with respect to shared services?
Well, the request to the Shared Service Committee has been made. They'll be contacting neighboring boroughs going forward. Now, you've got to understand something. You can't dance alone. You have to have a partner that's willing to go this with you. So that's what they have to explore. Historically, we've done handshakes with our neighboring boroughs when it comes to public works issues, police, right, John, and those sorts of things. Mm-hmm. However, all this now has to be quantified, and a dollar figure has to be attached to everything that we do. For example, we plowed Madison and Washington Avenues. county roads. We are compensated for that from the county for doing that. But things like that, we'll have to explore to see if in fact, can we work with with the neighboring boroughs, with their DPWs sharing or jetbacks. I don't know. Those are things that have to be explored.
No, I mean, with the budgets being squeezed, not Dumont, that's just being squeezed, everybody is
Yes.
being squeezed, so it's necessary, so.
And that's why we have a separate committee that's going to be investigating that and coming back to us with their results.
So there should be more willing dancers, right? Hopefully.
You would think. You would think. I would certainly think so. But this is a discussion that we've had. We've in the past have done a number of attempts, and everybody said thank you, but no thank you. So it seems to me, and this is just my personal observation, is that home rule is stronger than what the dollar is at this point. However, you're absolutely right. Going forward, we're all in the same situation. Maybe now people will be more willing to discuss and have a more productive exchange of ideas. But that remains to be seen. I can't answer. I don't know.
Mr. Chen, let me just expand on that a little bit. During the Corzine administration, I was summoned down to speak to the governor's office about shared services. I had put together a proposal, and I also put it to Christie's administration as well, about shared services and lumping it in with state grants and aid in order to qualify. One of the things, and we've talked to, Carl and I won a TV program where we talked about shared services with the county exec and a member of the freeholder board, where we talked about shared services and we talked about purchasing rakes through the county purchasing program, things like that, and nothing for nothing, but I'm not really interested in being able to buy a rake for $1.62. Carl and I both, and I brought this up to the county executive, we spend over $100,000 a year getting rid of leaves, and we just talked about that with regard to one of the vouchers. That's a recurring charge every year. You want to help us? Help us get rid of a recurring charge of over $100,000 a year. That's a half a point. That's what we're looking to do. We're looking to, and we've talked about a whole host of things, sharing the court, sharing dispatch, fire departments have been talked about in the past, although that, with home rule, that makes it a little bit more difficult, and that's tied into how much you pay on your homeowner's insurance for fire safety and things like that. Behind the scenes, we've talked about this to the point where it's almost sickening, because we talk about it, we get good ideas of what we want to do, and as Carl said, nobody wants to dance with you. There's always a reason. We want our judge, they want their judge. I came on board, we needed a salt shed. Under EPA regulations, we needed a salt shed. I went to have a meeting with the administrator in Dumont. Bergenfield, I'm sorry. She made me wait 15 minutes to have the meeting, and then when we did, after the meeting was over, she goes, there's no way we're doing anything with Dumont. We wound up putting up our own. They're still not under EPA regulations with their salt shed. And that would have been, instead of an $80,000 purchase for us, it would have been a $40,000 purchase. So, like Carl said, you need somebody to dance, and we're throwing things out there, trying to make everybody happy, and it's difficult. I think now is a good time where maybe things are going to start to move a little bit more. There are some more money, there's more money coming down from the state to study grant proposals and consolidations and things like that. But again, we're not going to go and apply for a grant if we don't have anybody to dance with. So.
Okay. Next question. With the budget the way it is now, the way it was introduced, are all borough employees receiving raises this year?
No, all borough employees are not receiving raises this year. There are some that are not, and there are the DPW and the police department have not gotten their raises yet because the contracts have not been signed yet.
Okay. And with the other departments, if the contract is already closed, then obviously it's closed.
Right.
But in administration, is there, now, as it stands now, are there any raises in that area?
Yes, in administration, everybody's been authorized to get a raise. Did we do the salary ordinance?
No, we didn't do the salary ordinance, but we included a raise in each line item in administration.
Yeah, the salary ordinance still has to be approved, so those that are not under contract, or those that are under contract and haven't been approved yet, won't be authorized until after the salary ordinance is passed.
Okay,
So until then, there's been no raises.
That would be after the budget's adopted.
okay. Now, Mr. Manning, were you indicating that you asked the department heads to send you budget requests with 5 to 10% reduction? Is that in line with that?
No, this was after we went through the first, review of their requests.
Okay.
After we got the numbers from the state, the committee agreed that we have to go back to the department heads and have them take a look at what they do and how they do it, and come up with, anywhere from a 5 to 10% cut additional to what we originally did with this piece of budget right here.
So does this reflect that or no?
No.
No, okay, so these are all before numbers?
Yes.
Yeah, that was an introduction number.
Okay, okay. Now, I've been looking at employee numbers, and I'm just curious as to why there seem to be more borough employees now than in past years.
That to be true except for the police.
DPW, we have the part-time, but because
Yeah, you have
it was
seasonal help with
costing
them.
an overtime, it was cheaper for us to get seasonal for either $10 or $12 an hour
Okay.
instead of,
Do you have these broken down into full-time equivalents and part-time equivalents? Or just basically the number of full-time equivalents?
No, we have it broken down,
No.
seasonal, part-time,
Okay.
full-time.
Okay, then I'll have to go back and look.
I mean, police.
It may not be in that document,
Okay.
but
When
we do have the numbers.
When we were overseen by the police, they pretty much told us the number to be at. That was the number we were at. We just had, 2 retirees, and they know we won't do any hiring for years now, especially now that they're 12 hours.
Well, yeah, that's just the police, I mean, on the other services.
Well, I said the DPW, police.
I'm trying to think where we have,
We didn't
because
expand.
we lost the
As a matter of fact,
clerk.
we went to 2 part-time positions from 2 full-time positions.
Where?
And the,
The health department and the tax
and tax
assessor's office.
Okay. How about in the clerk's office? Has there,
No, we haven't had a hire there, in over, Kathy's been here well over a year.
2 years, 2 years.
Yeah.
2 years.
so it's been, you're saying flat in the
Flat,
last
yeah.
year?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, in fact, we lost one in the building department, we never replaced, Linda.
Linda, right.
We didn't replace, Gladys in the tax assessor's office, and we didn't replace Peggy, well, she was full-time, and we made, another person part-time, so I think we're actually probably down than we were before.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm surprised
One
to hear that.
part-timer in the court.
No, we had a part-timer before.
Yeah,
Oh,
it
that's
was
right.
3 people.
That's right, I knew
Yeah.
that.
With respect to the building department, I'm curious as to why the building department keeps fewer hours than it is actually staffed.
I'm not sure what you mean by
What
that.
do you mean by that?
For example, the clerk has stand-up at 8:30 or 9 to 4, or 4:30, but the building department only keeps, I believe, in the morning, in the afternoons. Now, somebody's inside, but they say they're closed.
Yeah, they're open, the full staff is there from 9 to 2. That's what time the office is open. They close at 2 o'clock for a couple of reasons. Number one, we reduced the number of staff in the building department last year when we lost Linda. And with their recommendation, because of when their contractors normally come in, contractors normally in either early in the morning to get ready for the day's work, or midday to start work for the next day. One of the reasons we closed at 2 was so they were able to catch up with the day's work as far as logging everything in, making sure that everything was filed properly. And also to work on land use issues with regards to the board. Because there's a lot of application work that needs to get done, there's a lot of follow-up paperwork that needs to get done with attorneys and everything else, and when they constantly have somebody at their counter, it was just impossible for them to do, even when they had 3 people up there. So we reduced the hours to 2 o'clock, and it works fine, but they're there until 4:30 in the afternoon. They're just not answering the door at 2 o'clock.
Right, that's what I found out one day. Okay. Now, I'm sure you, Mr. Manning, you've gone over the budget as well as the full committee many times. And, everything not needed and not mandated, have they been eliminated from the budget?
What do you mean by not needed versus not mandated? That's two different directions you're talking about.
Okay, for example, let's look at, you have a revenue for shade tree grant, okay?
Mhm.
2009, $25,000 grant, 2010, no grant, right? Yet, going to the,
That's not true,
Yeah, but not for
I
the
don't think it's in
25.
the budget though,
Yeah.
this year, it came in too late.
I don't think it was 25 though, it was more.
yeah, going to the page for the appropriations for shade tree, basically spending the same amount as 2009. Now, is this state mandated that you have to spend this much money even though the
They're under-
state's kicked in
under
no money?
forestry,
Yeah.
What
yeah.
What page is that?
Alright, the revenue is on page 9.
Okay.
This is account 10-709. And the appropriation for shade tree is on page sheet 15A, account number 26-300-2.
Shade tree, 367, we had 50,000 last year. Now, but we did not pick up the revenue for the grant either. In other words, last year we had a grant for 25,000. I
Right.
don't know where that is. Hold on, must be, I think it's the later page.
Back.
Toward the back?
What the revenue was, I think?
No, the, grants. Grants.
I mean, unless if there's a state requirement, wouldn't it just make sense to spend the same amount of money as last year as starting point?
Well, part of the reasons that we have an O&E on shade tree is that we take part of the salary for the guy that's working on the shade tree truck, and we charge it to that line, so we need to have a line on shade tree. Whether or not they have a grant, the $25,000 grant, I think it was a one-time grant when we did all the trees. Is when we bought all those.
We're
that's
still
when we-
spending that money, we
Yeah.
had money left over, and we're still spending it.
Right.
So-
In this year.
So you're saying that this line item is a labor line item rather than a material line item?
Which one are you talking about? The
Yeah,
one on 9?
Yeah, I'm talking about,
What page?
26-300-2 on page sheet 15A.
Oh, see, 0, yeah. This is a shade tree grant, 0. As the revenue is 0.
Are you looking at 15A, Terry?
Yes. 58 is, 46,500, we cut that budget
Yeah, you,
from 50,000 to 46,500.
right, but the grant went from 25,000 to 0.
But the grants, there's no effect on the amount to be raised by taxation from the grants, because you get 0, you get, say, 25,000 revenue, and you also have 25,000 appropriation, so that zeroes out. So we didn't pick up any revenue on page 9, and we didn't pick up any appropriation, and I lost that, on page.
Isn't part of the expenses on 15A, Terry, part of Joe's salary?
Yes. If you look at page 25, sheet 25, I'm sorry. About halfway down.
Okay.
ANJEC Shade Tree Grant is 0 here. For this year.
Yes,
Last year
there's
was
0 for this
25
year.
this year. So we have no revenue and no appropriation.
No appropriation?
This is the appropriation on page
But-
25, is 0 for the grant.
Alright, but then what's this appropriation on page sheet
15?
15A, yeah.
Well, that's the normal expenditures, if we have to buy trees,
Trims.
Yeah, that's an operating
The,
budget. It's a regular operating budget.
Right, so if you get a grant for 1 year and you don't get a grant for next year, wouldn't it be prudent, to just reduce it?
I think he's thinking
Well, no, because you still have to operate.
Wait.
You still have to, it's still in
You have to
operation.
prune the trees, you have to maintain the trees.
Well, I'm not saying I'm cutting it down to
You know
zero,
what I'm
just
saying?
cutting it to the amount
Right.
less the
Yeah.
grant money.
Yeah,
Can I
but the
ask
grant
you
money,
how
the
we-
grant money was to go out and buy
Buy
trees,
trees.
not worry about what we already have in town, the trees that we have to either prune or cut,
The
inspect.
36 trees we had the,
Mr. Chen, do you
purchase
think
of.
that, when it says on page 15A, the 50,000, that the 25,000 is in that? Is that what you're wondering?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I
Okay.
thought you were questioning.
Yes.
Okay.
It's
You know,
not, the 25,000 is not in the 50,000.
Right, no, because this has other expenses, it doesn't say anything about salaries and wages, right, because of salaries and
Right.
wages, if you look at the next one, the Health and Human Services, it breaks
Yes.
down Board of Health, the salaries and wages and
Yes.
other expenses.
That's a transfer, that would be a transfer of funds from the shade tree to the DPW to cover some of that salary.
So you're saying that this is a salary and wage, even though it's
Yes.
an other expense?
Yeah,
Yes.
because it's it's what we take money out of that and credit the DPW side, because that's where he gets paid.
Alright, but wouldn't that go under public buildings and grounds in salaries
No.
and wages?
No.
No,
So this is a special
This is-
salaries and wages?
no,
This
this
is
is,
for the
this is a
arborists
pay,
only.
it's a charge back to the DPW from the shade tree for the services that the DPW person is doing for shade tree.
What we like to do is we like everybody to be responsible for their own thing. If
Mhm.
Shade Tree is getting the benefit of having this guy come and trim their trees,
Mhm.
we don't mind doing that, and we don't mind putting the number of his salary in their line, but that line just gets transferred to the DPW.
Okay, so
Because
in
it
other
gets
words.
paid through DPW.
So in other words, basically this other expense is a special labor expense?
It's operating expense plus labor expense. It includes
Not
both.
special,
It's not just salary. It's equipment, blades, anything that has to do with Shade Tree.
Okay, but so this 46.5 has a further breakdown in your documentation?
Correct.
Okay. Also, the next item that I'd like to know is on page 15C, celebration of public events. Now, I saw on the paper, it was on the Twin Borough News last week about Dumont Day registration,
Mhm.
and you basically
Yes.
organizing it. It's got the events, it's got the
You're talking about an event planner?
right,
I'm sure
yes,
that's what you're trying
yes,
to,
yes.
Okay,
Yes. I mean, it's a lot easier to get an event planner to get everything done, because in the past,
oh,
I've
trust
hired
me,
them.
I wish that
Right.
it was an event planner where I did
Right.
nothing, because I worked just as hard with her.
Right.
She has, first of all, we collect money all year. We go fundraising all year. We do that for everything. I mean, we do it for the Winter Festival. We do it for Dumont Day. But because she does a lot of other events, she gets like an I wish I knew this came up. I would have brought my celebration papers with me. But she gets like an X% discount from things. So using her, like the rides, which would be, say, $10,000 with her discount, for us it would come to a couple of $1,000s less. So, yes, we do pay her a couple of $1,000s, except that we do get a discount with a lot of things with her, so it pretty much evens out.
So if the borough volunteers were to
Oh, let me tell you,
vendors,
you
there's no
give me those
discount.
volunteers, I bring this up and I'm still a lone man, let me tell you. I mean, you're at every
Yeah,
meeting,
you
you see
seem-
me, I could beg
you
and
seem
plead
sense
for
up.
people, and it's me, and, the celebrations committee, me, Miss Galligan and Mr. Totten, and, I could smack my head until I get volunteers. I mean, I know, and not even talking about, Jen, cause I'd go back to her, but, people have said, well, do away with Dumont Day. I'm like, well, that's great, but what happens now to every single nonprofit? This is where they raise their money for the year.
Sure.
Yeah, I think, what do I charge? I think she's $3,250 or $3,500 a year, and.
Well, the line item is $30,000.
Okay, that's celebration.
for everything.
That's for everything.
movies.
That's for the whole year.
Concerts, Winter Festival, parade, Easter egg hunt, Halloween, and Dumont Day. I think that covers everything. The parade, yeah, all
Okay,
that.
let me ask it this way.
Sure.
The event planner,
Mhm.
does the event planner's fees, are they more, no, are the discounts that the, what she negotiates more than offset her fee?
Oh, absolutely. Like I said, I think, and it's somewhere between $3,250 and $3,500 what we pay her. And the main reason that I started to use an event planner, the person who had done Dumont for years, for personal reasons, gave it up, left no paperwork. I mean, I even got to the point, I sent the police to his house to get the paperwork. Never got any of it, so I was nowhere with it. And that was when we started to use someone. And to me, because I am the one, running it with her, I didn't want it to become political. I don't want it to feel like, as a council person, that I'm doing anything special.
Sure.
And I needed to have it as an unbiased event, and that was it. But yes, it definitely offsets the price of her.
Okay.
Not only that, just one other thing. The county this year sent us a contract for the stage and the tent. It was $2,000.
Okay.
We got them to reduce that to $650 or some ridiculous number. And that offset alone would pay for almost half of what she does. Not only that, I can tell you, I don't know how many meetings we have on celebrations, just for the Dumont Day.
We've already had me.
There's, when we get down to the nitty gritty, between all the department heads that get involved in this, there's no way that you could get volunteers to do the amount of work that this woman does. I honestly don't know how she does it.
I'm not questioning.
I know that, but I was married to an event planner, and I'm telling you, I don't know how they do it. I mean, you do the same thing every year, but to line up all these vendors that are coming in, and to make sure that there's no overlap, so one guy isn't going to come in and do hot dogs, that's a non-profit for us, and then some other guy's going to come in and sell hot dogs for profit. I mean, just trying to coordinate all that is amazing. But this $30,000.
That's everything.
I think we probably over the course of the year, we probably get 3/4 of that back in donations from people that may want to sponsor her this year, so there'd be no cost to us at all for her. Want to put up banners and charge off the rides.
Before I took it over, the fireworks were $25,000. The first year I did it, and we had the fireworks, I think they were $20,000. We got the whole cost covered. When we did Johnny Maestro a couple of years ago, that was $18,000. We got that covered. Last year we got the concert covered, and of course, the way the economy was starting to go, we went with a low price. That was a couple of $1,000s. We got the price of that covered. We got the rides covered last year, and we'll go back to doing the same thing again this year.
Okay.
I mean, if you ever want to see the paperwork on all that, give me a call and we could sit separately with that, because I have, the cost of everything.
Okay. Well,
Throughout celebrations.
I'd like to get to the paperwork out of this now as a well, but I would like to. Okay. Just a general question. I know that there's a lot of cutting and belt tightening involved, but does the borough have any plans to grow top line revenue?
Like what?
Leasing more tower space, parking.
The tower space, I'll talk about that for a minute, unless Carl wants to jump in on
that's
that.
fine, yeah.
We have a tower here.
Yes.
We're getting a monthly revenue from that now. We have been approached, and I did mention this at a council meeting, we've been approached by a company that's would like to buy the entire space for one lump number, and then if they go out and they can get people to piggyback on the tower, we will get half that additional revenue. That is something that's been turned over to the borough attorney and looked at. We've talked to the borough auditor about it, about what's going on in other towns. That's something we will definitely address within the next couple of months. We've also got another site in town where there was some discussion about putting in a tower. We spoke to the engineers. The engineers have looked at another site that we own. They're going to talk to the contractor to see whether or not they'd be interested in moving, I think, just a few hundred feet to our site. So we're very much interested in doing that.
Okay. Because I just separately with regards to towers, I would just like to, for the town's sake, avoid past mistakes being made about, setting up a fight, to fight these people, because you're not gonna win. The state and the federal government, they have a mandate.
Mr. Chen, I've been involved in 4 cases. 4 cases. And I'm not talking about in this town, and we've lost every single one of them.
Right.
The issue has always been in other towns, not here.
Right.
In other towns was, well, let's put up a fight just to show people that we wanna fight. But you're talking $45,000, $50,000 of taxpayer money. I have never been a proponent of fighting something you know you're not gonna win.
Right. And
But out of the last go-round, I
Mhm.
must say though that, we worked with the land zoning board in identifying areas in town that were rezoned specifically for that reason. So even though we didn't win, there was a learning curve that was obtained by that. So that's why we have these other areas now that can be offered, that are municipally controlled, that can be places for vendors to come in and take a look at. That's what John was alluding to, so, yes, we lost the case, but I don't think that, it was totally in vain, because we got some.
Lessons learned.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
okay, so, yeah, cause, this is something that, the borough can make money on.
Oh, absolutely,
You
and
can't
we have
spend
very
away money.
few revenue streams,
Mhm. And this can recur, and it can go up. It can only go up.
Absolutely.
It won't go down.
Right.
Absolutely, no doubt about that.
In fact, with the FCC mandates, in future years, with advanced telecommunication services, there's only going to be more, not
sure.
fewer.
And it's not like it comes before the mayor and council. We're not the say on these things, it goes before the planning board. I don't think people realize that, everyone's quick to blame everything on us, and I know you look into things, that that's the answer, but unfortunately most people don't.
Well, if there's some, precedent set, as you're aware, the council is in the process of repealing a ordinance for right turns or left turns. The people wanted it, but the laws and contracts don't support it. So I know that's something up to the council or the various boards to explain to the residents. Hey, we know you want this, but don't look at us. No, look at the state. No, look at the feds.
That would be fine if people came to the meetings. You would have attended probably more meetings than, other than the council people, than most people in this borough has in 10 years.
Well, I try to make the information available to other people. If they want to read it, they can. If they don't,
But that's exactly my point. At this level, borough level, is probably the most accessible
Right.
point of interaction between government
Sure.
and the residents.
I don't have to make an appointment.
Right.
Twice a month.
And it still amazes me that someone would rather not come, but yet comment on it, and then form an opinion, and then start talking about it without having the interaction with the council, or the boards, or participants, so, it's a double-edged sword. What you do is fine, but I would rather have a person come up to us and say, hey, I don't understand exactly what it is that you're trying to do here, can you explain it to me?
Mr. Mayor, it's very difficult. I'm very fortunate. My wife currently stays home, but I know it's not going to last forever. And when that stops, I would probably be more likely not to show up. Not because I've lost interest, it's because I don't have time.
Yes, but you've gained so much more of an insight of what we do and how we go about doing it. And you're able to have a conversation, knowledgeable conversation.
And of course I can't agree with everything, but then
That's not the point.
Agreeing to disagree.
That's
They don't agree
fine.
with each other with everything, don't worry.
That's part of the process. And I would venture to say that if everybody did agree, then there's something very wrong with the process as it stands. I worked for 40 years on Wall Street. Believe me, there was never a time when everybody agreed on everything. Whether it was implementation of systems, going to what vendor to use for what, I mean, never was there a total agreement. So that's not the point of that. The point of it is having that intercourse in the discussion. And out of that, that's where you find where you can make it either better, change it, leave it, or just, get rid of the whole damn thing altogether.
Okay.
And the unfortunate part about that too is that I get people who come to my office every month. They'll see something in the paper, and rather than come to a council meeting, they'll come to my office and ask. And I have no problem with that. I mean, I have an open door policy.
Sure.
But what's amazing is that everybody thinks that everybody that sits at this table agrees. And I can tell you, in my personal opinion, I'm not blowing smoke, but this is the most active council I've ever dealt with, and I've been doing this for 12 years. I mean, it's the most proactive council I've ever dealt with. When things are going on in executive session in here, in closed session, there was a lot of disagreement, to the point where I'm glad we used plastic bottles.
Okay.
Because I'd be afraid that there'd be blood splattered. So for people to think outside that this is a harmonious group and everything is always fine, absolutely not true.
You see what goes on.
What do you think is, the off that?
He's the reason we got plastic bottles.
You said it was advertised in the paper, you saw it on the website,
Well, wait.
and you're red.
Well, wait. It was advertised on the paper last week. Okay.
Yes.
It did not appear on the website until about
That,
a few hours ago.
really? Well,
Today?
I made sure it was in the paper.
Today?
Yes.
Wow, that's a surprise.
I didn't know that. I
Did
mean,
not make it until today. In fact, since you guys are on Twitter, right? If you go to Twitter,
That's what it,
Are we?
yes.
Oh, are we?
How do we get on
Aren't we
Twitter?
cool?
Now, if you go to twitter.com/DumontNJ, right? That'll show the
well,
logs.
they're picking us up then, because we didn't subscribe to that.
Oh no, it's on the official borough website.
I think.
In a little corner.
I
We
think
are on
that,
Twitter.
C3 put that on.
So every time a document is posted, it goes on Twitter. Every time an appointment is set, it goes on Twitter. And there's a log of when all those entries are made.
Oh. Good
So
job.
it said what time it went out? Oh.
Yes. For example, if it's on the same day, it'll just say how many hours ago, from where you're referencing. But if you, let's say, access it tomorrow, say, it'll have the date and time.
Oh,
It's
so
like
yeah,
a
I didn't
date
know
stamp.
that.
Yeah, date
It's
and
a
time
date
stamp.
stamp.
Now, the date and time stamp is off because it's California time, but if you subtract,
12 hours,
3
yeah.
hours.
3 hours.
That's
Mhm.
like-
Well, that's interesting, I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, but
That's not good.
I know it's not legally required to the firm, but it would be nice if this would be simultaneous on the web.
Oh, I agree. I absolutely agree. If you're gonna take the time to put it over to the paper, just get on the website, stick it up.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, okay, all right. Now, some specific questions. I understand that the borough issues annual parking permits, and I've purchased them throughout the years. Can you tell me where the revenue line item is on the?
I believe that's in clerk's other expense, borough clerk.
Expense, wouldn't that be a revenue?
I mean revenue, I'm sorry. See, you know more about it than us.
Well, revenue's what you make,
Yes.
right?
I believe it's in licenses other.
Sheet
Or,
4.
yeah, or the permits and fees.
Okay, so
I'm
parking.
not sure which one it is, I can check that for you.
Yes, please.
But, that's where I believe it is.
All right. Okay.
Parking meters, would it be under that?
There's nothing.
Oh, okay.
Oh, speaking of parking meters, does the borough plan to charge for parking?
We've looked into this.
I know it's
we've looked into
controversial,
meters.
but-
It's just more of the space of it, and then you have the businesses, the employees of the businesses. We go through this every year. Every year we go and we look into meters and we discuss this and where would we do it, and
We looked into possibly putting a parking kiosk, down at the borough, parking lot, and also on West Shore. But we talked about it and then it just never came to fruition, because we were concerned that, we have an issue with parking now, in our opinion. and whether or not that would add to people's disconcern that there's not enough parking.
Well,
So-
because parking is such a, scarce, commodity, wouldn't it be an opportunity to, explore?
Well,
parking?
well,
Because
we've had that
you can better
discussion,
manage.
yeah. We've had the discussion, like John said, putting the kiosks in, because, my experience, just observing up in Westwood, people will drop, 50 cents in, stay 12 minutes, leave, and somebody else come in, drop another 50 cents. And that was my thinking of doing that down, municipal side, municipal lot. But then again, we have to balance that off with persons like yourself who buy a yearly permit. And how many permits are we going to issue versus how many we won't, to use the kiosks to offset that 25-minute parking. Parking on the street on Madison Avenue, people jump in and jump out. I mean, I don't know how effective that would be for the cost of putting meters in and monitoring that, so that's something that we have to talk with traffic, because most of the time, they just run in and out, whether they're going to the Jolly Nicks or Dunkin' Donuts, or jumping in to go to Bill's store for a can of paint. I mean, they're not there long enough where you can say,
Well, I'm actually talking about the commuters.
And
The
then people
folks who
to
leave their-
oversee
Oh,
it,
that-
the police
yeah.
have to stop and check everything,
Well,
there's
that's,
really a
again,
lot.
that's the discussion of issuing permits versus,
Or opening more spots to take permits, so you can sell more permits.
well, that's what I'm saying, we only have X number of spaces. How do you find what the cost value of issuing a permit versus putting the meter in? Permit, you have the dollar, you have cash in hand.
Right away.
Right away, So, these are things that we wrestle with, like we go from 2 hours to 12 hours on West Shore. 12 hours you issue permits, 2 hours you don't, And again, most people will go in there, they're either going to the New Milford side or the Madison Avenue side of the business, for the businesses. So, does it pay to put those meters in or the kiosks in?
Okay.
Will they pay for themselves? Nobody has shown me that, yes, it would be cost effective to do that.
One of the things that we talked about last year was possibly discussing this with the Chamber of Commerce. Chamber of Commerce went defunct last year, weren't well managed, probably within the last 2 years. One of the things about parking meters is that you need to find out whether or not you can sustain parking meters and not have those people that are willing to come up and drive around the block a couple times to find a spot to come into one of our stores, or whether or not they would decide not to if they had to pay for parking. So, that's something that we would want the Chamber of Commerce to really buy into, and then probably get input from other towns that have parking. You can't compare us to an Englewood, or maybe not even a Westwood.
No.
But you need to get them to buy into it, because they're the ones that are gonna be directly affected.
No,
We've
yeah,
got an
that's
active
right.
chamber right now.
Yeah. So
Very
we'll see-
active.
We'll see where that goes.
Yeah.
Since we're talking about, contract, just a few minutes ago, the borough executed a contract for $30,000 a year from Metro PCS, right?
Right.
Can you tell me where I can find the revenue line here on the budget?
Where is this?
You can't find it on here,
Why is it not?
because we didn't anticipate that revenue. And the reason we didn't anticipate it is because I think if you look down the budget and see what we realized on the revenue and see what we realized in 2009 versus what we appropriated in 2010, those amounts are quite close.
I'm sorry, I don't understand.
Okay.
Wouldn't this power lease be a new budget,
No.
revenue item?
It doesn't have to be. We don't have to budget for every revenue. So what will
Alright,
happen?
so where would this fold into?
It's gonna fall into miscellaneous revenue not anticipated.
Miscellaneous, why would $30,000 a year be? I
Well,
mean,
okay.
now you have $15,000, a year for recreation fees in 2010, anticipate 2009 is 10,550. This is greater than that. Why would they not
Well,
have their
because-
own line item?
Well, we didn't have it for last year.
Wasn't the
It
contract
was
signed
only
in 2009?
I think it was $2,005, $2,500.
Right.
Per
It was
month.
only at the end of the year that we executed, we started
Was
receiving
the
money for this.
contract signed in June?
Was it? I don't know.
Yeah, but if they didn't start paying anything until it was built.
But doesn't the contract say that they're supposed to start paying 45 days?
I'm not sure, I don't remember. But I know they anticipated they were gonna start building.
Well, that's just two
Back then, something like
pages.
that. They anticipated start building immediately,
Mhm.
and there were conflicts with PSE&G and a few other issues that had to get resolved,
Okay.
so they didn't start right away. I'm not sure when the revenue started coming in, that's something we'd have to check, but. But I know we got two fairly large checks
Yeah.
that, like, one, I think the first one that came in was like $4,500 or even more than that.
Maybe, and the second one was 2,500.
Right.
I think. Well,
But I mean, wouldn't that still be reflected in here somewhere?
it doesn't have to be, and this is the reason. The borough needs to generate surplus. Surplus is generated by revenue that is under anticipated. For example, let's say, the fire inspections we anticipated 15,
Mhm.
and we got 25,000.
No, 15,175.
No, in 2010, for example.
Okay.
Okay, we could do that. Say in 2009, we anticipated 10,550, and in 2009, we actually realized 15,175. The difference between those two numbers went directly to surplus.
Okay.
So every item that we under anticipate and we over realize goes to surplus. Now, it's very important to us to generate surplus. But you notice, in this case, on these revenues, we haven't anticipated that much less than we realized last year. For example, the recreation fees. We realized $62,394, and we anticipated $62,394. You see that on page 4, sheet 4?
Okay, so what's...
So that
I'm
means
not
that
sure.
we don't have much leeway for us to realize more.
But isn't that good forecasting? If you get what you
No.
project?
It is very good forecasting, but unfortunately, if we over anticipate the revenue, the amount to be raised will be less. Let's say we picked up another 100,000 on the recreation. The revenue that we collect on for taxes, the amount to be raised by taxation, would be $100,000 less. So we wouldn't be collecting enough money. And we always like to have a little buffer, because you notice the surplus that we anticipated in 2010 is 805,000.
So you're saying...
First line.
So you're saying that it's better to underestimate than overestimate?
Yes. Because if we underestimate, then the extra money will go to surplus. If we overestimate, we're gonna have a shortfall, and it's gonna be negative surplus. We're gonna reduce our surplus.
Maybe help,
Yeah.
maybe help me out, because I'm not sure
Okay.
where in accounting principles say that, it's better to, because I've taken
Okay.
accounting, and maybe I've missed it, maybe I missed that lecture, maybe I
Well,
slept through that lecture,
I think-
that where the professor said, hey, it's better to underestimate
Well-
than hit right on target.
Okay. It does when you have to collect that money and you don't know what's gonna happen during the year. Every year, we use some of the surplus. We have $1.2 million surplus, and we use 805 to offset the budget. You'll see it on the first line. Now, if we didn't have that, we would have to raise taxes $147 per household. If we didn't have that 805,000. Now, how are we gonna regenerate that surplus? the only way we can regenerate that surplus is if we underestimate, be reasonable in our revenue, but underestimate the revenue to be realized, or we underspend our appropriations.
Okay, but
Now,
I
our
don't.
budgets are very.
No, maybe help me out here. Not certain why this has anything to do with, you've got a new line, you've got a new line item, why not list it?
I think what she's trying to say, Mr. Chen, is that if it's not listed, and it's not required to be listed, even though we signed the contract in 2009, if we're gonna bring in $30,000 this year,
Sure.
and it's not listed as an anticipated revenue, that at the end of the year, it would be listed as an unanticipated revenue, which we're allowed to do. By that, we could take the $30,000 and apply it to surplus.
So what happens the following year? Is this still a off-budget line item?
Well, it'll be up to finance and the auditors whether or not it should be shown after the first year, after the full first year, as an unanticipated revenue or a line item. I mean, I don't know how Gary would do it, to be honest with you, because it's the first time I've come up with something like this. But,
Because I've seen other, boroughs tend to have these sheets, and the ones that have a cell tower, they say for 9X or for Sprint or whatever.
well, it depends on how long they've had it too. It depends on how long they've had it. I mean, we had it, I'm trying to think, I think it was in Leonia, and we showed it as an anticipated revenue, but I think it was after 3 years. But that's something we could talk to the auditor about to see whether or not this is something that would be an ongoing, or in the first year would show as an unanticipated revenue, because we are very, very close to our anticipated revenue and actual revenue, where it doesn't generate surplus. I mean, I thought we were gonna have a problem last year. How we got a surplus after last year's budget, I have no idea.
Only by accident.
Yeah, and this year, it's gonna be even tougher, because we're kinda under the gun with the cap and everything else, but we could find that out for you, whether or not this is something that would be carried over, or whether or not it's a 1 year.
Okay. All right, because I don't know, maybe, I'm sure the auditors have some other ways of doing it, but when I do my finances at home, when I do my taxes, if there's an extra expense or if there's an extra income, I list it so that I know myself what I've incurred, so that in case if I'm ever audited, I'd be able to explain.
Well, trust me, we get audited every year, and the auditors, this is definitely something that they're gonna see, because they know that there's a contract out there and the funds are coming in.
Sure.
Whether or not it's gonna be applied to a single line, or whether or not it's gonna be shown as an unanticipated revenue, and go directly to surplus, it'll be in the reports.
Okay. All right. And my final question is actually about the backup numbers, about the reports. As you're aware, Mr. Manna, I've made several requests for backup documentation for this year's budget, and I've been rebuffed, and the reason from the borough attorney is that it's preliminary information, and preliminary information doesn't have to be revealed. And I understand, and I appreciate that. I have to say, however, that other boroughs, other municipalities, they're in the same situation as well, yet they provide more information than they need to, more information than is legally required. Why? Now, if I may quote the Inglewood mayor, Frank Huddle, when asked about his plan to televise and archive videos. He says, quote, "I want to make it as easily as possible for residents to get information about their government so that they can participate in critical issues." Huddle said that the current economic crisis meant that the council needs transparency more than ever. The city, he says, is at a critical stage of the budget process, and transparency is essential in order for the residents and taxpayers to be informed. And he continues, quote, "It's past time to show that the people who elected that we are serious about having a transparent, open government on their behalf," Huddle says. Okay. I mean, I'm sure that the you guys have your, budget meetings and lay everything out on the table and get everything done, and, and that it's all done very, straightforwardly, with integrity, but the appearance of hiding behind a, legal decision, no matter how well-intentioned, it just gives the appearance that something untoward is going on. Okay, and now I guess with the recent blocks against the wider access to budget information, I guess I'll just have to be satisfied, or not just me, others who read my blogs and others who access the files that I provide. So I'll just have to be satisfied and completely trust the council to pass the budget before I get any detailed information. So in that respect, now, with all due respect, I'm very, very disappointed. I'm very disappointed. And that's all I can do with that.
Thank you for your input.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
No, I don't have any this time.
Okay. I call this meeting adjourned.
Okay.
All right.